Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're just going to give it a few more minutes for folks to make their way on in here. Um, we know that it's just around dinner time. You might be finishing up dinner. So we're just going to give it a few minutes. But thank you all so much for being here. I love seeing these numbers climb, which is great. We have a phenomenal panel assembled for you this evening, talking about graduation for our family support series. This is being recorded, so if you missed something, you can always go back to it, but we'll officially get our program started in just a few moments. So please hang out, relax while we get things going. All right, I'm going to give it 2 more minutes and we will get started at 7:05 with all of our questions and dive right on in. But again, thank you all so much for being here. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name's Dalen Orlick. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I'm the Associate Director for Family Programs here at George Mason University in the Office of New Student and Family Programs. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are very excited to be able to host our first family support series of the spring semester, focusing specifically on graduation. Tonight, I'm joined by members of our incredible Mason family and Mason community from the Office of the University Registrar, Student Accounts, and an academic advisor from the Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution. Since the bookstore was unable to be here tonight, you will also see our incredible graduate assistant for family programs on our call, who will be answering questions on their behalf. Tonight's topic, as mentioned, is prepping for graduation, for which we will have all of our panelists on the call answer questions that we've pre-prepared, and then we'll have them answer questions from you all. So while the panelists are speaking, if they are bringing things that are queuing questions for you, feel free to use our Q&A feature. The chat will not be available for you, so please use our Q&A. We will be monitoring that throughout the entire evening. We will mark which ones will be answered live, and you will also get live responses back to your questions. So that is next to the chat button on the bottom of your screens. The chat button will be used to show all what questions we are asking the panelists, just so you have them in front of you in case you didn't hear the question. And we will also be placing links directly into the chat box for you so that you know what resources are available to you and that you have it all as you leave the call this evening. We also have live transcripts and closed captioning available for those who might need it. So you can just click the live transcripts button at the bottom. And this session is also going to be recorded and posted to our website and our YouTube channel for you to always be able to access it post this evening. So whatever you need, whenever you need it, you can always access this of, what did they say about this again? We have it for you. So with that, we are going to get started with our questions. And the first question that I have is for our student accounts colleague. But before we dive in, if you, Jennifer, could introduce yourself, your pronouns, and what you do here at Mason, and we'll get started with our questions.
My name is Jennifer Naradzi, and I am the Assistant Director of Student Accounts here at George Mason. My pronouns are she, her. And I oversee operations for the cashiering office. So if you send in a payment, my office handles that, collections, as well as everything related to student accounts, refunds, removing holds, things of that nature.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here this evening. We're very excited to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. The first question that I have for you is, can my students still graduate if they have an outstanding tuition balance?
Yes, your student can still graduate. They can participate in graduation, but they will not receive their diploma or official transcripts until the balance is paid in full.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
So the next question is going to be for Jane. So before we get into that question, if you could also introduce yourself, your pronouns, and what you do here at Mason.
Thanks for having me. I'm Jane Walker. I am Director of Student Services at the Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution, and my pronouns are she, her. What I do is for our particular school, I review degree audits and make sure that our students have met requirements and assist them in navigating degree works. The registrar has the final say on whether or not students meet degree requirements, but we work with the registrar's office to make sure that students understand those requirements and provide, paperwork, substitutions, things like that to help them navigate that process.
Awesome. And thank you so much for being here this evening. So for folks on the call, just to provide some context of one of the things I'll be asking about, DegreeWorks is a system that your student is allowed to use to be able to see what they've completed, what their in progress with completing, and what they haven't completed. It is a tool that is available to all students. And so, Jane, your question is, DegreeWorks is telling my student that they have not met the requirements of their degree. What should they do?
They should immediately contact the academic advisor that they have worked with throughout their program. Oftentimes, that message is sent by the registrar's office And it doesn't necessarily mean the student isn't meeting requirements. It means that there is maybe, possibly some paperwork that needs to be handled, or a final review hasn't happened. So assure your student not to panic initially if they receive that message or if they see red in DegreeWorks, but to reach out to their academic advisor and work with them to figure out what the problem is and how it can be remedied.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that insight. That's really great information. Our next question is going to be for Stacy in the Office of the University Registrar. Could you please introduce yourself, your pronouns, and what you do here at Mason?
Sure. So thanks for having me. I'm Stacy Wilson. I'm the Assistant Registrar for Degree Compliance in the Office of the University Registrar. So our team monitors everyone's degree evaluation in DegreeWorks. We process the paperwork that comes in from advisors like Jane in order to make sure everything's up to date. And then we also review graduation applications and confer degrees. So we're intertwined with the graduation process.
Awesome. Thank you so much again for being here this evening. So my question to you is, how does my student even apply for graduation, and when is the deadline to do that?
Sure. So students should submit an online application via Patriot Web, and they should do so by the deadline for the semester in which they intend to graduate. And so there's going to be a link in the chat to the process and to the application itself. So if your student is planning to graduate in spring 2023, which is the upcoming semester, they should apply by no later than February 22nd. There is a late application process if they miss that deadline, but there's a few extra steps and paperwork with our advisor. So the best thing to do is to apply online by the deadline.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I think that's really great information, because I think a lot of folks don't realize that you have to apply to graduate. It's not just the completion of your credits and, accomplishing that feat. There's also a process to ensure that everything is cycled through on the back end. So thank you for providing that. And I've gone ahead and dropped that link that Stacy was mentioning in the chat box for you all. So make sure you open that on up. The next question that I have is for Annabelle. If you could please introduce yourself, your pronouns, what you do here at Mason, and who you are also representing this evening, just so that folks are aware of the unit that you're representing.
Hi, everybody. My name's Annabelle Spencer. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the graduate assistant for family programs. Tonight, I am kind of standing in for the bookstore. So all of the regalia questions and the fun parts of graduation are what I get to answer.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here this evening and for coordinating this entire event. We really appreciate it. So the question that I have for you is, what is the deadline to purchase regalia?
So there is no deadline to purchase regalia for bachelor's or master's students. So that's something that you guys will probably not have to worry about. The process can be done completely online. It's a really easy process through the bookstore. The website and the purchasing portal, which I'm putting in a link for in the chat and answering a Q&A question with now. It has not been fully switched over for spring commencement. It's still themed for the winter. But when that gets fully updated, this link will be there, and your student can go ahead and go in there and purchase everything that they need. But yeah, there's no deadline for any of that, and it should be pretty straightforward.
I guess the deadline would be when you walk. Just make sure that you have it for that moment.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Jennifer, I'm coming back to you. So let's say, because I've gotten a few of these, right? So let's say my student has some parking tickets or maybe some other fees other than tuition that have not been paid, right? Maybe it's a outstanding balance on a book. Maybe it's something along those lines. Can they still graduate?
Just like the previous answer, yes, they can still graduate, but they won't receive their diploma or their final transcripts until the balance is paid in full. And I get that question a lot now.
I'm sure. Can I ask a quick follow-up question? I know I
Sure.
didn't prepare you for the follow-up question. How do they know if they have those outstanding balances available to them, or that those are on their accounts? How is that communicated to them?
If they have any outstanding parking tickets or anything along those lines, parking services would contact them. But they can always look at and monitor their balances through Patriot Web, and that's under the Student Services tab under Student Accounts.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Sorry to
Of
put
course.
you on the fly there.
Oh, no worries.
Awesome, Jane. I'm coming back to you for our next question. So what happens if I'm in my last semester of classes and I'm looking forward to graduating, but I don't pass one of my classes that I needed in order to graduate? What does that process look like?
Well, if it is a required class that you need to meet, when I say required, a course that you are taking to meet degree requirements, you won't be meeting degree requirements if you fail it. And in some instances, if you pass it with a D or even a C-, you might not be meeting degree requirements. If it was an elective course and you had credit hours in excess of the required courses to grad, or the required credits to graduate, you may still be able to graduate. So it depends on if it is a requirement. The process that you would need to follow is to repeat the course, which can replace the grade. You oftentimes could do that in the summertime, but not always, because the university doesn't offer all of its courses in the summertime. And if it's a special topics course or something like that, that may present an issue as well. Repeating a course in the summer would still allow you to be able to walk in the spring ceremony, but you wouldn't actually have your degree conferred until you completed the requirements in the summertime, and that conferral usually happens in August.
Awesome. Thank you so much for providing all that information. I know we've started receiving some Q&As in the chat box, and I know one was regarding taking a summer class, but being able to walk in the spring. So I really appreciate you answering that, and I might come back to you with the Q&A question specifically.
Yes, and that was a rather complicated answer. So if there are follow-up questions to the information I just provided, please ask.
Of course. Thank you so much. All right, Stacy, round two. Let's do it. So my student has met the requirements of their major, but maybe not their minor. Can they graduate from their minor in a future term?
Sure. So students cannot graduate from a minor in a different semester than their major. However, if students do not meet the requirements of their minor, but they do meet the requirements of the major, they may potentially drop the minor in order to remain eligible for degree conferral. So what they would need to do in order to drop a minor is to speak with our academic advisor and fill out the appropriate paperwork, and then that will get sent over to the Office of the Academic Registrar to process.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know I was in that boat when I was a student. I was like, oh no, I realized I am missing a class, but I want to graduate in May. So what does that look like? So I really appreciate you answering that question.
Sure.
All right. So the next question that I have is going back to you, Jane. So I know that there is a general commencement event in Eagle Bank Arena, and then individual colleges also are having their own degree celebration. Does my student have to attend both? And are tickets required for both? What does all that look like?
So no, your student does not have to attend both. Your student does not actually have to attend any. This is something that they choose to participate in, and they can absolutely choose which parts they would like to participate in. The individual colleges do not usually have ticketed ceremonies. I know for a fact that the Carter School does not, and many of the other units do not have ticketed ceremonies, and neither does the full commencement exercise that Mason hosts either. But there is a tab on the registrar's website that has information. And I think, Dalen, you're dropping different links into the chat for people to see. And I would, check that out as the graduation time approaches, because additional details about that will, always be updated. I think right now it is showing 2022 information, but that will be updated soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So Jennifer, this next question is for you.
Oh, good.
Wait, never mind. Hold on. Sorry, not for you. I apologize, but I'm keeping you on your toes,
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, Stacy, this one's coming back to you. So when will my student receive their diploma after their graduation?
Sure. So diplomas are mailed out 6 to 8 weeks after each conferral date. So once an order is placed, the student will receive an email from our vendor called Parchment, and they'll get a link to an electronic diploma, and then they'll get another email when the vendor has printed their diploma and it's ready to ship.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'm going ahead and dropping that into the chat box for everybody as well.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, Annabelle, this one is for you. So when will Regalia be available for pickup once I've ordered it and gone through all of that process?
So once your student orders it, they'll be given a date that when they can start picking it up. There is no limit to you have to pick it up by this date, obviously, except for when you graduate, like we said in the previous question. Up to and including the day of graduation, your student will be able to go and pick up everything that they've ordered, which may come in handy because I know sometimes Regalia will arrive closer to that date or little different pieces at different times. So there is not a hard stop deadline on when your student has to pick it up. They can even pick it up on the way to Eagle Bank Arena and they will be okay.
Awesome. Thank you. So the next question that I have is also for you, Stacy. So after a graduation application is submitted, how does the application review process work?
Sure. So degree conferral is a manual process. So our degree compliance team reviews each graduation application at least twice. So once during an initial review and then again closer to the posted conferral date. During initial review, we're flagging any outstanding requirements noted in a student's degree works evaluation. And then once that is posted, students can work with their academic advisor to resolve any outstanding issues. So students are actually given a 6-week grace period after a posted conferral date to resolve any issues that may prevent them from graduating. If there's still outstanding requirements after the 6-week deadline, then that's when students must reapply to graduate in another semester.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I was getting the link for the degree works evaluation and making sure I have all that in here for folks. But I really, really appreciate that question. And then Annabelle, the final question for you before we open it up to folks, because we're getting a lot of questions right now in the chat, which is awesome, is just when is the grad fair and what is the grad fair?
Okay, if you haven't ever heard about Grad Fair, this is an incredible one-stop shop for your student and who's graduating from the university. It's held in person on campus a few days during the year before graduation. And this is where they can get any kind of information that they need in addition about regalia, announcements, all of that good stuff. Everyone will be there at the same time. This year's grad fair will be on February 28th, March 1st, and March 2nd. And on each of those days, it'll be held from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So we will put those dates in the chat as well. Make sure to write them down and just let your student know that they can stop by and get all of their things in order at one time.
Awesome. So we have a lot of questions, and I appreciate all of your answers thus far. And I want to make sure that we answer as many of these questions as possible. So I've started to notate the ones in our Q&A function for all the panelists, which ones we'll be answering live. And if there's others that are very similar, we can also address those in here. But the first question that I have looking at this would probably be for you, Jane. So the first question is, how long can we expect it to take to have class substitutions approved if their department has already approved of the class substitution?
Okay, and I think I'm going to tag team with Stacy on that one.
Great.
So there is a review process that happens in their particular unit. So when a student first requests a substitution be made, and the Carter School absolutely encourages students to tailor their degree and to see what special topics and new classes are offered that they may want to apply to requirements. So that this internal process of review could take 1 to 2 weeks. But once it's approved, we fill out paperwork and we send that over to degree compliance. And that's where the registrar takes over. So Stacy, I'll turn it over to you for the rest of it.
Thanks, Jane. So once we get the forms from departments, we prioritize those based on the semester in which the student's graduating. So during our busiest times, it can take about 4 to 6 weeks when a form comes over for us to fully process it and for that to appear in a student's degree works. But again, if you're graduating, don't worry, we're prioritizing you and we'll process as quickly as we can.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So the next question that I have would also probably be for you, Jane. So how does it work if my advisor said I can walk in the spring graduation, and possibly also Stacy? How does it work if my advisor said I can walk in the spring graduation, but I still have to take summer courses before I can get my diploma? Do I apply for the spring graduation or do I apply for summer graduation?
The student would apply to summer graduation, but still be able to walk in the spring graduation. And just to kind of explain that process, summer applications are also, if you apply on time, summer applications will also be included in the spring commencement program. Is that correct, Stacy?
So for summer graduates to be included in the spring commencement program, they should follow the deadline for spring graduation. So they should apply by February 22nd.
And then as the way it works for the individual schools is the students show up, and those students that show up, because you are not required to participate, we take the names once you're there and order you accordingly and read names accordingly. So it's not a problem at all to be graduating in the summer and participate in your in the spring graduation. And I did want to do one follow-up to the previous question about approval for substitutions. Once the student has the departmental approval, they can feel pretty confident and assured that it is approved. The registrar is not going to reject that. It is just a matter of making sure that the department has crossed all their T's, dotted all their I's, and followed process properly. And so that would be the only thing that would happen, is the department would need to do something more, but the student is their responsibility is done once the departmental approval happens.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. I appreciate your answers there. So the next question a few folks had, or were like, yes, agree with that question. I need an answer to this. So the next question is, are there any special instructions or guidelines for a student in an accelerated master's program, but finishing his undergrad this semester? So possibly for someone who's in a BAM program, or anything along those lines. How does that work for folks?
Yes, there are special steps that they have to take. They have to complete a bachelor's accelerated master's transition form, and they should have completed that by the end of the add drop period. So that is next Monday. And if there, again, there is a process to do that late. If they need to, but if your student is in a BAM program, that form is available on the registrar's website under the forms tab. And Stacy, I don't know if you have something to add to that.
No, I would just say, make sure you get the form in by the deadline so it can go over for processing and admissions, and then it comes to our office. So thanks, Jane. That's perfect.
Awesome. So this next one might be for Annabelle, since I see that she marked it that she was going to answer it live. So if my student is in the honors college, do they have anything additional that they need to wear, like regalia that's specific to the honors college or anything along those lines?
This one I'm not super positive on. So if someone else has the answer, jump in. I would assume that they will have a cord or a stole, but they will be informed of that by the people in their department and be given like the pathway to purchase that. So yeah, it won't be a surprise. They won't have to look for it. They'll be alerted in plenty of time. And I would assume that they wear something distinctive for the honors college.
Yeah, a lot of the times for certain groups, so I know that we do specific ceremonial things for our BIPOC families or BIPOC students and families, our LGBTQ plus families and students, and all of those. Same goes for honors college, where they might have a ceremony in which they receive additional regalia to wear, like a cord or a stole. I've seen some medals designated to those that are graduating with like high honors. So your student will be informed of such from the honors college. So I would just have your student keep an eye out regarding that to their Mason email account. So a lot of the times folks will do things individually there.
We also tend to get questions about honors cords, so that's separate from honors college, but based on your GPA, if you qualify for honors cords, and that's based on GPA actually and number of credits taken at Mason, the registrar sends a list over to the bookstore about 10 days before each commencement. And so your student will get an email if they qualify for those, and then they'll be able to go over to the bookstore and buy the cords.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stacy. This next question is also for you. So how long does it take to hear back from Mason once they've submitted a graduation application?
I can take that question. So once you submit your graduation application, you actually get an email that says that it's been received. And you can also see that it's been submitted in DegreeWorks. So if your student signs into DegreeWorks, in the first information box, there's a field called graduation status, and you'll see they're filed, or if your application has been reviewed, the status of it there. So it's good to check in and look at DegreeWorks as we go through the semester so you can see the status of your application.
Awesome. Cool. So this is just whoever possibly knows the answer or might not know the answer, and it's okay if we don't. We can refer them to specific places. So for both the main university ceremony and the individual ceremonies, can the students walk with any other graduates they arrive with, or will they be put into a certain order, maybe by last name or first name or program? What does that typically look like for folks?
I can speak based on our school, and I believe other schools follow a similar order of events. And what we do is we distribute cards, and the student fills out the card with their name and a phonetic pronunciation of their name. And so they can line up however they want, set with whoever they want. And when they walk across the stage, they would hand the card to the announcer who would read their name. So that it doesn't matter what order they come in. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I believe the same, do you know, Jane, if they do reading at the main ceremony for everybody? I think it's just like a general ceremony and they do names at the individual ceremonies, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Awesome. This next one is also for you, Jane. So hypothetically, very specific word here, hypothetically, if I fail a class, or a class is failed and the class is only held once a year in the spring, does that mean a student would not be able to graduate until spring of 2024? So a year later after they've possibly completed that again?
I would say that hypothetically, that is possible. However, there are some instances that a school that is offering a class only once a year would have an alternate class offered in the opposing semester that could be subbed. Now that is going to be purely dependent on the program and what the class is. So if you are concerned at all, I would speak with an advisor and know early on in the semester what the stakes are.
Yeah, that can, Jane, just for folks who might not be aware, can you also provide some information on just how they make an appointment with their advisor or how they can find their advisor, just for folks who are like, I have never met with my advisor in 4 years and I don't know where to start?
Sure. You can simply Google advising at Mason, or advising George Mason, and it'll take you to the advising website, which will have instructions of how to set up an appointment. Mason uses a system called Navigate to set up appointments with advisors. And once a student goes into the Navigate system, they can go through a sorting feature that allows them to find their advisors for their program and times available. If there is any difficulty at all using that process, I would simply then go to, Google your major at George Mason and find contact information and contact someone directly in the department, and they will get you connected. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it, and advisors absolutely are here to help. So please reach out.
We have a lot of questions in the chat regarding individual commencements. How do they find out when those individual commencements are? Do you know if they've already kind of gone out, or when they take place?
So those were just announced within the last week, or I shouldn't say announced, they were communicated with the schools, what the timing is going to be. Typically, the main graduation ceremony for all students happens first, and then the individual units follow. And I believe that is going to be on a Thursday. That is the main one. I know that the Carter schools follows the next morning, Friday morning. After that, some of them will be held at Eagle Bank Arena. Some are for Center for the Arts. It depends on the size. So I would expect that the main Mason website will be updated soon with the 2023 information, since that has now been decided. And to find out specific information on the schools, you would need to contact the graduation coordinator at that particular school.
Awesome. Thank you so much for providing that information. I'm going through all of these questions. So the next question is regarding keynote speakers. So I actually want to provide some information here. So the question is there a keynote speaker at the ceremony for each individual college, as well as the overarching graduation ceremony? So I'll let Jane and others talk to possibly individual colleges, but I know that we actually just received some information that your student can apply to be a commencement speaker as well. There is an application process. So if your student wants to speak at graduation, they can actually put forth their names, and I'll drop the link in the chat here shortly once I pull it back up from my email account, but they can apply to be a keynote speaker during commencement from the student side. And then typically we do have a keynote that comes and speaks at commencement. Jane, do you want to talk to like what the Carter School does in regards to commencement speaking and those types of things?
Right. For the individual schools, what the Carter School does is we have a student speaker representing the undergraduate program, the master's program, and the PhD program. And then we also have a keynote speaker, and that ranges from, a distinguished alum to a professor that is visiting from another university. We've had a variety of keynote speakers. Each of the student speakers they're giving a 3-minute speech, and there is a selection process. So the undergraduates apply for that honor, and they go through a selection process. It is peer nominations or self-nomination, and then the graduation speakers are selected. And yes, it's an honor. We work with the students to help them develop their speech. And other units are going to follow similar, a similar process.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I see that Stacy put a link for everybody, just so we can also answer some of these additional questions of just when individual ceremonies and school ceremonies are. So thank you so much for providing that. I really appreciate it. So if you are curious of when you need to travel and get to campus, or what days you are going to be occupied for, please reference that. I also want to mention that on the Mason family website, we have a link to our Marriott hotels, so that you can begin accessing and purchasing hotel rooms at our discounted Mason rate. So you're able to do that with partnering Marriott hotels. They are all within about 10 miles of campus. So you will be pretty close to campus at any of them. And we provide discounted room rates in partnership with Mason and Marriott. So definitely take a look at that. I also dropped, we've been getting a lot of questions of like, when even is commencement? So I dropped a link in the chat for everybody. We have a family calendar. So on our Mason family website, this takes you directly to our calendars. We have it translated in several languages as well. So whatever one is the most accessible for you or your family members or other individuals who might be coming to graduation, just so that you are aware of when certain dates are taking place, when things are happening. Maybe it's when you need to clear your bill with student accounts. Maybe it is what certain things are for commencement. And so just make sure that you are referencing that, so that you can continue to support your student as we get closer and closer to the application deadline for graduation and towards the add drop deadline for classes and all of those things. there was a good question in here for you, Jane, that I think I want to ask, because this could be the case for a lot of different students, depending on what their major is. So it says, my daughter just told me that she might not be able to graduate because she did not complete her internship. Graduation is just a few short months away, and I'm just finding out about this now. Who do I contact, or who should their student contact regarding this matter?
Their academic advisor. Some programs, including the Carter School, require a field experience to graduate. An internship is one way to fulfill the field experience. There are other ways to fulfill it as well. For instance, we also approve a study abroad trip, and there are study abroad trips that the student could still complete. If it is an internship only that your student needs to complete, I will say that a 3-credit internship requires the student to work for 135 hours, which works out to be, approximately 3.5 weeks of work if they were to do it full time. So even if your student had to find an internship for summer, they would be able to potentially complete that internship in the first session A of summer, and session A wraps up. Stacy, I might need some help here. I think it wraps up maybe the first week of July or the last week of June. So it wouldn't be too much of a delay if they had to do it in the summer.
Awesome. Yeah. And just for everyone's knowledge too, those summer course sections of when things are completed for section A and all that are also in the family calendar for folks. So if after this session, those, you were curious about when that takes place or when you need to add things by for summer, those are also indicated in the family calendar. So great resource for everybody. Stacy, I think this question might be for you, but when does initial degree compliance review take place? It might be.
That's a great question. So we actually are starting the entire month of March. So we typically take 2 weeks to review undergrad and 2 weeks to review grad. So we're going to start roughly March 6th and we'll wrap up at the end of the month.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you all to everybody putting these questions in the chat. We have time for just a few more, but before we finish up and wrap up all of the remainder questions, I do want to just quickly launch a poll. So for those joining on a device, on a phone, on a laptop, it's going to be a pop-up screen. Please answer. We love your feedback and want to continue to provide these programs. We do these once a month, but want to know whether or not this was helpful. So if you could please just answer this. It should have just popped up on everyone's screen. It'll take 30 seconds. It's just 3 questions, and we'll continue to answer your questions along the way. So we'll keep going through our questions. Please keep filling out that poll and make sure that you're answering. It's very helpful for us to know how we can continue to improve our programs and whether or not this was beneficial to y'all. So Stacy, by any chance, do you know what time the May 18th commencement is at, other than the date? Very random, I know.
I don't know. Honestly, commencement is arranged by university events. So I would just keep an eye on their website. It's usually 10 a.m., but I'm not 100% sure for this upcoming semester.
Awesome. No problem. And for folks who are joining this call, we will send out an announcement later on in the semester when we have everything compiled for graduation, so that we'll send out a mass email to all of our graduating seniors and families through the Mason Family Connection portal, which is how you all registered for this event, that will outline everything for graduation. So just keep an eye out on an announcement there, but we will be sure to be sending that out probably sometime in March for you all, when more solidified information comes our way outside of just when commencement dates are and those things. So we will send that out accordingly to everybody. For folks who may have joined late, I see a few questions in here. This will be recorded. So we are recording currently, and this will be posted in the Mason Family Connection. It will be sent out via an announcement to you all. And then it's also posted on our YouTube channel, which you can find just by searching George Mason Orientation, and it'll pull on up for you. Trying to make sure. Oh, great. Tracy, one of our incredible guests in here, said that the May 18th ceremony is indicated as 10 a.m. on the main graduation page for everybody. So make sure that you go to that, and thank you, Tracy, for providing that information. Jane, this might be a question for you. So if a student is completing a major at the Schar School, but a minor in the College of Visual and Performing Arts, can the student attend both ceremonies of Schar and the College of Visual Arts where their major and minors are held, or would they only attend the one for their major?
So typically students only attend for their major, but if we had a student reach out to us and say, I minored in conflict resolution and I would love to attend the graduation ceremony, we would absolutely let them do that. So I think the colleges, are open to supporting whatever students and however students choose to participate. However, walking across the stage, that is conferring, well, it is representative of conferring a bachelor's degree. So there might be some questions. Typically, you do participate in what you received your bachelor's degree in. I hope that helped.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's great information. And I'm glad to hear that, students want to go through multiple ceremonies. I think that's always great. I love the spirit. I did just go ahead and put the graduation link in here as well through the Mason website that has some more general graduation information for everybody. So that is good. Cool. I'm making sure that we are getting everything for our panelists. Ooh, this is a good question. Is there a difference for graduation for undergraduate students and for graduate students? So do graduate students do their own individual things through their own colleges? Are those built into individual ceremonies for the colleges? What does all that look like?
So the Carter School holds one graduation that PhD, masters, and undergraduates all participate in. And to my knowledge, every single college is like that. There are oftentimes there are separate ceremonies in addition to that for PhD students where the hooding takes place for PhD candidates. And I'm not sure if others on this webinar might have additional information to that.
Awesome. I'm seeing some questions regarding sorority regalia and things like that, and whether or not that is sold through the bookstore. Typically, it is not. That goes through the individual organization. So a lot of the times for fraternities and sororities and students who might be affiliated, the chapter will purchase a lot of the times regalia for their students, like stoles or cords or whatever it might be for graduating seniors. So they should just talk to the president of their organization whether or not those will be ordered. They can also a lot of the times purchase said things directly through their national organizations. So if it was the first one that comes to mind is Zeta Tau Alpha. So if it was ZTA, they could go to ZTA's website. And a lot of the times they have things that you can purchase specifically for graduating students. So if that is something you'd like to do for your student, if it's not being provided by their chapter here at George Mason, you can always go ahead and do that for your student. So I would just look into those. That's a phenomenal question. Again, for folks that may have come in late, we will share out a recording of all of this. I know that there's been a lot of questions, so we will be able to keep all of these questions in this recording for you. So you can always go back and hear all the answers to these questions and what they were. In regards to the links, we'll be sending it out also via an announcement, and we'll post it as an article in the Mason Family Connection, where we will be sharing the links in the body of that information. So keep an eye out on all of that so that you can always be sure to reference everything. Stacy, a question for you. If a student is applying for graduation, is there a separate application for majors and minors, or do they just put everything into one application and indicate what their major is and what their minor is and whether or not they've completed those requirements?
So for undergrad students for major and minor, it's all one application. Unless your student is dual degree, where they're completing 2 bachelor's degrees, they apply separately, but both degrees have to confer at the same time. For graduate students, if they have 2 programs, a master's and a certificate, let's say, they apply separately for both programs.
Dalen, I would like to draw attention to a comment that was dropped in that the CVPA, College of Visual and Performing Arts, someone noted does require tickets. And I would just encourage everyone to confirm that with the individual schools. And also, we have not required tickets, but we have come through COVID, and Mason is growing. So I would even confirm that we're not going to have tickets for the main commencement. We have not in the past, but things do change. So do confirm that.
Yeah, we can get that information out from folks. I can talk to my colleagues in university events and just make sure that I'm aware of all that before we send out this recording for everybody, just so that you all have it. But thank you so much for calling attention to that, Jane. Great. The final question that I will see if anyone knows the answers to, but do we know whether or not the graduation ceremonies will be live streamed and whether or not folks can attend from home? And if not, that is totally okay.
I will say that they have been in previous years. So stay tuned on that. And that is the main ceremony that I know that was live streamed. And it is a pretty cool thing because students perform and there's musicians, and it's been a neat thing to do live stream, but stay tuned for that information.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So with that, everyone, we will be concluding our call. Thank you so much for being on here, and to all of our incredible panelists this evening for providing insight and answers to all of the questions. We got through about 40 questions in here, so lots of folks leaving with answers, I hope. But to all of our attendees, we do host our family support series monthly for you all. So you will receive future announcements regarding all of our topics and conversations, but we have a lot of great things planned, so keep an eye out on your inbox. If you have any further questions, whether that be for our panelists or for us hosting the events, please don't hesitate to send us an email at families@gmu.edu, and we'd be happy to answer them or connect you to the folks who are on this call to ensure that you know what's going on next. But to our panelists, thank you so much again for being here. To our attendees, thank you so much for coming, and we will see you all for the next family support series. Have a great evening, everybody.